Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Welcome to this press briefing on behalf of HMS Mersey, visiting this week as part of her tasking as Atlantic Patrol Task North. Delighted to welcome the ship to Montserrat finally. As some people may be aware, she had to cancel her visit at the end of April for technical reasons, which Lieutenant Commander Hewitt, I'm sure no doubt, will explain. So we're pleased that she's here. We've got a condensed and compact programme within the sort of 48 hours that she is here. So I will hand over to Lieutenant Commander Richard Hewitt to say a bit more about the ship, its capability, what she's been doing in the region and what she's doing here. And then we'll open up for questions. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Tony. Good morning. My name is Lieutenant Commander Richard Hewitt. I am the 9th Commanding Officer of HMS Mersey, and I am delighted to bring HMS Mersey to visit the island of Montserrat, one of the UK overseas territories. We'll be spending 48 hours here, a busy period of calls for myself trying to learn as much as I can about Montserrat, so I can take that information back to the UK. And my ship's company are delighted that they are also able to visit and step ashore today and visit this beautiful island.
Okay, Lieutenant Commander, great to have you here eventually.
Thank you.
And your crew, of course. Just to give us an idea of your program while you're on the ground.
We left the UK on January the 6th, and after an uncomfortable transit across the Atlantic, with a seas of 9 metres, we were absolutely delighted to make it to the calm seas of the Caribbean. We'll be spending 5.5 months in the Caribbean before we return to the UK in July. And our principal task is to offer reassurance to the UK overseas territories, of which Montserrat is one, and that's why I'm delighted to be visiting here. Second to that, we also help out with the counter-narcotics effort, working with partner nations and other countries in the region to stop that illicit flow of drugs within the Caribbean area and also crossing to Europe.
You come at the most opportune time. Today marks the official start of the Atlantic hurricane season. Can you give us an idea of what will you be able to contribute should one of the OTs or the OTs in general, if they are impacted by a storm of any kind? What is your capacity to assist?
Before leaving the UK, we undertook some bespoke training with the small ships company I have to see what assistance we could offer on the ground should we be called in to offer assistance. And whilst my team only consists of 40 personnel, of that 40 personnel, I have specialist trained people who can proceed ashore and then be able to proceed ashore and give an accurate information of what is happening on the ground. So then when follow-on forces arrive and other assistance arrives, we can offer that first aid assistance when necessary. But I do have doctors and medics and engineering. I carry 80% of the stores a frigate or destroyer would carry, and we're able to make our own water on board and provide that ashore. So we have a bespoke capability, not as large as the ships that are coming in for your core hurricane season time, but we are able to offer assistance and, more importantly, feed that information back for the follow-on forces.
I'll just add to that, James, as well, that and the captain alluded to it in terms of the first aid, because the ship, if it were to offer assistance and come in, would only provide what's generally known as the blue light response. So the first 48 hours to get things moving again and form the basis of a longer-term recovery effort. And as I also said, later in the season we'll be welcoming RFA Wave Night to the region. She arrives later in the year, and HMS Mersey and Wave Night will be handing over the responsibilities at that time.
Okay, good morning. Hazel Riley, Discover Montserrat. You mentioned the uncomfortable seas coming over the Atlantic and being glad to be in the calm Caribbean. And as James said, today is the first day of the Atlantic hurricane season. Have you ever encountered in this area, or have you ever been in this area during the hurricane season, and how do you anticipate that your ship, first of all, what's the size of the vessel, and how do you expect that you'll be able to do in the event of really rough seas in the Caribbean, because they can get bad?
HMS Mersey is 80 metres in length, 30 metres 80, 13 metres wide. She has a draft of 4.7 metres, and she's effectively 1,900 tons. For sea states, she is built to manage high sea states. In the UK, her primary tasking is as an offshore patrol vessel, is sitting down doing fisher protection. So for high sea states, and as proven crossing the Atlantic with some 9-metre swells, she is very, very capable of being in those high sea states and being able to carry out her core duties effectively. Whilst here, we are outside of the core hurricane season, although it has started now, and as Tony alluded to, RFA Wave Night comes in. But we do have that bespoke capability on board, and especially with our communications fit, we'd be able to stay at sea for a prolonged period. And what we'd offer is the communications fit and the blue light response and get that information back. It is HMS Mersey's first time in the Caribbean. And so far, actually January and February was quite rough in the Caribbean when we came across, the weather was. And so far she's lasted very well.
So where do you go when you leave Montserrat? You said you're here for 5.5, in the Caribbean for 5.5 months. So you're
Yes.
wrapping up basically?
Yes.
Okay.
We're wrapping up to come into end of our time, and that is planned as part of RFA Wave Night for the core hurricane season, who comes with a greater capability, a larger ship, to offer that blue light response. So while we're meeting up with RFA Wave Night in the next 2 to 3 weeks and doing a handover with them face to face, so I can tell them of all the things I've learnt over my time here from all the UK overseas territories. So when they arrive in theatre, they understand what the issues are and are ready to go. And should the unspeakable happen, they'll be ready to go and offer assistance.
And just to add to that, I was Billy Darrow, Director of Disaster Management, and I were in Miami last week, and we met with the command team from RFA Wave Night. Having said that, the command team that joins Wave Night in the region will hand over actually before the end of the season, so there'll be a different command team, but we have already made that contact with Wave Night.
Have you had any encounters concerning narcotics trading and stuff like that in this period that you've been out in the Caribbean?
We have, and we've had some success. We've had 2 hauls, one in which we were able to interdict a sailing vessel with £12 million worth of cocaine on board. And in the last 6 to 8 weeks, we've also disturbed a go-fast, which was trying to also transship £12 million worth, and we were able to stop that, and the drugs were jettisoned and the boat returned back. So we've had some great success whilst here in the Caribbean, and the presence of HMS Mersey being around, working with partner nations, whether that be the US Coast Guard, the French and the Dutch. There's a very close knit, and our presence alone, I think, has stopped that flow.
You sort of preempted my next question. I was just about to ask, what has the collaboration been like with the governments of the OTs that you've been working along with? You also mentioned that you'll be handing over face-to-face with Wave Night, and so that they'll get a better idea of what you've been doing in the area and what they should work on. So what has been the general collaboration like working with the various governments and agencies?
Montserrat included, and all the overseas territories, we've been afforded a very, very generous welcome by all the places we visited. And I take time on the first day to discuss the security situations with each of the overseas territories. So when I sail, I have an understanding of what they're trying to achieve and their capabilities. Notwithstanding them, there's also our partner nations such as the US, the French, the Dutch, who are also in the region, in the areas, and we work with those guys to see what we can do so we can basically patrol as much of the Caribbean areas as possible. The hand-over face to face with RFA Wave Night is very important, and I am conscious of the fact that all the information I've learned for the last 5.5 months needs to be passed to that command team, so when they come in, they have a complete understanding of what the current situation is.
I know that intelligence is intelligence, really, but let us look at for a while at the whole security issue. You would have mentioned a little bit about it, and here in Montserrat, we have an exclusion zone,
yes.
Or you would have learned
Yes.
that we have an exclusion zone, and which makes our borders porous. What are some of the things that you would have discussed, to enhance security in the islands?
Well, I know there's a desire, speaking to your police commissioner, to procure new boats, and we've been able to talk about that and what sort of vessel would be best suited for the areas you're in. And I have the knowledge that of visiting all the overseas territories and other Caribbean islands, I can use that to see what vessel would be best suited for your waters. So I've been able to offer that assistance. Maybe unbeknown to the general public, as we arrived here a few days ago, the night before I arrived, I did a circumnavigate of the island and went and patrolled the waters to make sure that when I arrived here, I could feed back what was going on at those 24 hours. So it's all passed on, and I'll pass that information on to RFA Wave Night as well.
I know you would not pass it on to us.
Actually, the captain described some of the successes they'd had. I'm sure if he'd found anything down south, that would have been a huge coup, and it would have been passed on.
Okay, you might have mentioned the number, but I can't recall. So I'm going to ask, what's the size and the composition of your crew? I see that you have two ladies here with you this morning. Could you just give us a little more information about, the crew, where they're from?
Yeah.
Stuff like that?
We operate a 3-watch manning on crew, so of 16 personnel per watch, and they change around every month. But effectively on board, I have around 40 personnel on board at any one time. Some of the crew don't change around. Being myself, I have to stay in the Caribbean the whole time, which is absolutely fine with me. And the rest of the crew obviously change every month. We're quite unique in HMS Mersey, and that 25% of my ship's company are female. And my command team, so my inner command who advise me on day-to-day business, of that command team, 3 of those are also female as well. So I have a very mixed bunch on board who are in various responsibilities.
You mentioned earlier about discussions that you would have held with the RMPS. I know that they have some areas that they would like to have your assistance. What are some of the discussions centered around in terms of your own conversations and dialogue with the RMPS?
I think, as I've alluded to, you are in an area where you're about to procure new boats, and I think from the maritime knowledge I have, that's where I'm best served to offer that advice on what boat would be best suited and what capability you're trying to. Your new boat, you want it to go to 6 miles, 12 miles, 24 miles. And based on the knowledge we've learnt from being here and seeing other islands and what vessels they use, that's where my discussions have been predominantly with the police commissioner to see what advice, and on the navigation advice and the navigation equipment Mersey is fitted with, would any of that be transferable to a vessel that you might procure in the next couple of years?
That is the vessel itself. How about, that's beach surveillance.
Yes.
How about other means on island? I did mention the exclusion zone. You would be able to navigate, but in terms of underground, on
Yes.
land, what are some of the discussions that you would have had?
Mersey's capabilities are bespoke to the maritime environment. I think with vessels coming in, Wave Night and the follow-on vessel thereafter, which will have helicopters, they might be better suited. And what I wouldn't want to do is talk to the commissioner about something I would not be the expert in. And at the moment, Mersey's capability is offshore patrolling with 2 high-speed seaboats conducting boarding operations, and that's where I'm best fitted to offer advice to the commissioner.
One of the things I always ponder is this whole issue of counter narcotics. And every single time a vessel is in the area, they are met with these challenges. What are some, in terms of education, what are some of the things that you would put on the table to sort of act as a deterrent to these kinds of activities in the waters?
I'm quite conscious of the fact that I try and publicise HMS Mersey is here in the Caribbean as much as I possibly can, and whether that be through social media, whether that be through Governor's Office, to say that we are here and we're patrolling. And I think the mere fact we're here is the best we can do. They have their own intelligence networks, but we are catching up. I think working with partner nations and working with Coast Guards, commissions of police in each of the islands is absolutely key, that we transfer that information So all the islands are speaking together, in between islands, and all the nations are speaking together. And I think if we get the intelligence network correct and we exchange information, then we'll beat it or reduce the amount of flow. But I think we must publicise that Mersey's here and any other ship in the future, so they know there's a ship on patrol and we're looking for them.
48 hours does not allow you very much time to interact with the powers that be and
Yes.
the locals. But is there any social activity planned for you now that you're on island?
I think when you're dealing with sailors, you don't need to worry about social activities. A few of the sailors stepped ashore last night, and I think they had a great time. And I know there are tours today, this morning and this afternoon, when they're going to the volcanic observatory, which they're very keen to do. But they have been absolutely overjoyed to step ashore. From where we're anchored in Little Bay, it's beautiful.
I'll just add as well, Hazel. As we said, the original visit was to have taken place in April,
Yes,
and the ship would have been here for 4 days rather than 2. And I was sitting in Antigua Airport last Monday on my way to Miami, and I got a call from the regional British Defence Attaché, who was actually sitting in the captain's cabin at the time, saying, could we host a visit this week by the ship? I sort of swallowed hard and said, yeah, okay, but we can only do it for sort of 2 days because the ship has to move on elsewhere. So within that 2 days, we thought, well, what could and what should we do as part of its programme? So so the guys on the ship and the girls on the ship have had a run ashore. We did the protocol calls yesterday, the operational meetings with the police. We go straight from this meeting now up to DMCA for a briefing, and then they go up to MVO this afternoon for a briefing and a tour as well. So as much as they can do in 48 hours, we've tried to do without putting too much strain on either the ship or on ourselves. The visit in April would have included a half-day exercise, which is something that I always want the ship to do when it comes here. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to do it this time because to get an exercise off the ground again would have required an awful lot of heavy lifting.
And notwithstanding the patrol we conducted as well before we arrived,
Yep.
which now I can say to the general public, that's what we did before we arrived. And patrolling around the Caribbean, wherever I can pass through an overseas territory's total waters, I will pass through, informing the Governor's office that I'm around. And even if we're not actually physically stopping here, as we pass through, I'll let you know I'm passing through to know that we're doing those patrols for you.
Okay, you said you go to the MVO, so you do not get the chance to see Plymouth itself from the land. Is that what I'm understanding?
There's nothing planned, but the ship's agent may be able to arrange something, one of the now more common tourist visits, but certainly nothing formally planned in the programme. If the ship, if 1 or 2 people from the ship manage to do it, that would be fantastic. Certainly from the MVO you get a reasonable view. But that's and the weather's not too great today, so seeing the volcano itself is going to be a bit of a challenge.
Okay, well, I trust that you will enjoy the hours you spend on land, and the, visit will be mutually beneficial to the crew as well as to Montserrat.
Thank you.
Lieutenant Commander, the 2 officers, I don't know if you spoke of the areas of specialty before. I'm not sure, but if you have not, could you just brief us?
I have 2 officers with me. One is my operations officer, who has been in Mersey for 18 months, and the second officer you see is an officer under training, so she'll be with me till the end of the year, and then she'll proceed on a navigation course before going off to navigate her own ship.
Your operations officer, that is a task that takes quite a bit of doing.
Yeah.
What are some of her activities that? Well,
she is responsible for delivering HMS Mersey's programme on a day-to-day basis and looking ahead, and the whole of the programme in the Caribbean is driven by her. She updates me on a daily basis, and in conjunction with running the programme, she's also responsible for maintaining my ship's operational capability so that we are able to fight fires, fight floods, fire weapons, launch boats, visit these places, do all these things that I've said we could do. She's responsible for that. So she's a very busy lady.
Yeah.
And I keep her quite busy.
Yeah. You keep her quite busy.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's really great. Your tenure is coming to an end, and I know that you would have had a great experience in the Caribbean. And from here on in, we just want to wish you and your crew all the best as you go back. And of course, surely we'll like to see you again sometime soon.
That's great. That's very kind. Thank you. And and just a thank you from my ship's company and I, just to say the reception we've been afforded since we've arrived in Montserrat has been fantastic. We've been made to feel very, very welcome. And if I have the opportunity to return, I promise I will.
James, Hazel, thank you very much. Thank you, ladies.